Hi everyone, this video will look at how Gustav Stresemann tried to improve Germany after all of the problems. So last lesson we looked at the effect that the Treaty of Versailles had on Germany. So that's what I'm going to get you to do for your starter. To recap your knowledge from last lesson, I'm asking you to remember as many problems in Germany after World War I as you can. Just type them straight into the chat box. So can you remember anything about money, power, status, soldiers, land, anything like that? So pause the video, do yourself the date, title and the task. So let's recap some of the problems in Germany then, just so we're all on the same page. The first problem is obviously the Treaty of Versailles. That's where kind of everything comes from. And it leads to Germany having to pay £6.6 billion in reparations, which is frankly astronomical. It's far too much money. Germany's economy was completely crippled by it. And they lost 13% of their land. They had to give up a lot of their colonies, which led to a loss of income, but also a loss of status as well, at a time where everyone, apart from Germany, had its own empire. And the army was reduced to 100,000 soldiers, so this was technically for defence, but it is still nowhere near enough for defence. People are poor, people are really struggling with money in Germany. And people are angry. Article 231 means that Germany has to take the blame for starting the war, even though it wasn't technically their fault. And this leads to massive issues globally. Germany kind of becomes the laughing stock of Europe, and it also leads to them not being allowed to join the League of Nations, which was a group aimed to working towards peace. And a bit harsh to completely ban Germany from that. So these are all the problems in Germany. We will be referring to them throughout the lesson. So if you didn't know any of them, or you should have written them down last lesson, but if you didn't, feel free to pause the video and just get down those bullet points now. You're now going to watch this video. The link to this video will be in the description. Now, all it does, it just talks about all the problems and things that Stresemann does before we do it in a bit more of a clinical way. This is just a nice way to get you introduced to the key themes, the key terms, and help you follow the chronology of what's going on. So pause this video, go to the description on YouTube, and you will find the link to this other video. So we're going to now look in a bit more detail at some of these problems. And you guys are going to be doing a table with a pencil and a ruler. Now, you're going to want to leave this table open-ended, but it's probably going to be about an A4 page. And I would suggest maybe if you've got your book or you're working on paper, just turning your page horizontal, so sideways, so it goes across. So go ahead, pause this video, copy out this table with the correct headings. Okay, so our first problem is the economy. So you can go ahead and pop economy in your first box. Now, Germany is suffering from hyperinflation, and this is when money becomes worthless. And by that, I mean it got to the point in 1923 when a loaf of bread cost over 1 trillion marks, with marks being the German currency like we have pounds. And this happened because the government had printed more money, basically photocopying it, so it's not worth anything. Photocopied money isn't worth anything. So there were trillions and trillions of useless notes being used in the country. So that's the problem. So where on your table it talks about the problem, that's what you need to put in, this idea of what hyperinflation is and what it means to Germany. So to solve it, Stresemann creates a temporary currency called the Rentenmark. And he introduces this gradually, which stabilises the economy and ends hyperinflation. And he also got help from the Allies, so Britain, France, and America, in organising the National Bank. And this stabilises Germany's economy. Stresemann completely solves the problem of hyperinflation. But Germany also has to pay £6.6 billion in reparations, which, as we've established, is significant. And Stresemann creates the Dawes Plan with the USA to organise the repayments, and he made the repayments much easier to handle, with 1 billion marks for the first year to be increased gradually. And this plan also gave Germany loans from America to help the German economy, which helped a lot. So in terms of the reparations, Stresemann doesn't solve the problem completely, but he certainly helps it. So pause the video and input that information to your table. Okay, so the second problem we're going to look at is jobs. So unemployment in Germany had been at 9 million by 1926. But by the end of the Stresemann era, it was 6 million. So unemployment was very high in Germany, and Stresemann reduces it. Now, he's not solved it. 6 million unemployed is still high, but he has made it better. And he did this by creating work programs to get people earning their own money. And once this happened, Germany starts kind of going through a golden age. And many people not only had enough money to survive, but to live comfortably and enjoy life now. So again, it's not everyone, but he does improve lives for certain people. So pause the video and input this to your table. So our third problem is all about national pride, so how Germans feel about Germany as a country. The Treaty of Versailles was a huge embarrassment for the German people. The Article 231 blamed all Germans for the war, and that was probably what was hated the most. And of course, Germany is banned from the League of Nations, of which most other European countries were allowed to be a part of, which again is purely to embarrass Germany. They almost become a bullied country. Like their status worldwide is really low. It's not ideal. So Stresemann is determined to boost the reputation of Germany on the international stage. And he creates the Locarno Pact, which states that Germany will accept all borders. And this gives the world some peace of mind that Germany has no intention of going to war again or to take back land. And it also comes up with the brilliantly named Kellogg-Briand Pact, which unfortunately has nothing to do with cornflakes, but it does mean Germany, alongside 64 other countries, they all agree that their armies are only to be used for self-defence. Again, this just calms everyone down and reassures them that they all want to work together. And finally, Stresemann actually gets Germany admitted into the League of Nations in 1926. Even though they're technically banned, he convinces the other European countries to let Germany in, and this restores Germany to being a fully respected country in Europe. So pause the video and put that information in your table. Problem number 4 is Germany suffered from a very, very unstable government. After World War One, Germany's Kaiser or king abdicated, which means you give up the throne. And so Germany was governed by someone known as, or a group known as the Weimar government, literally named because they met in a place called Weimar. However, they never had a majority in the Reichstag, which is their parliament, and that's a problem because without a majority, the Weimar couldn't pass any laws, so they had a hard time running Germany. Basically, what happened is that Weimar would suggest something, and because they didn't have enough people on their side voting yes, it didn't happen. And there were many uprisings or like protests staged to take over the government. There was the Communist Spartacist uprising in 1919, the Kapp Putsch in 1920, and Hitler's attempt to gain power in the Munich Putsch in 1923. And these extremist groups grew really popular after World War One because they promised to make Germany strong again. And the country had no food, no money, and lost much of their land. And the Weimar government wasn't fixing the problem, so extremist groups offered a solution. The problem here is that the legal government is very weak, so people are trying to riot to overthrow the government and make their own, which is quite a dangerous thing to do. But Stresemann actually improves a lot of things. So he improves money, he improves jobs, he gets food back in the country. So it actually made extremist parties less popular. And so Germany begins to see a period of stability in government because of Stresemann's calming influence. So pause the video and pop this in your table. Right. So I'm asking you a question now. What was Stresemann's greatest achievement? What do you think was the best solution to the biggest problem? And you can't really get this wrong. Historians all disagree. I'm sure even me and Mr. Ferguson would have different opinions on this. And we're going to ask you to type this into your chat box. So what do you think was Stresemann's greatest achievement and why? So do you think it was the fact he solved hyperinflation, that he reduced the reparations, that he rebuilt Germany's status by allowing them into the League of Nations, that he stopped extremist parties from taking over Germany? Just what do you think? A sentence or two? Pop it in the chat box. So it's important to note then, because when we talk about Stresemann, he does make a lot of improvements to Germany. He does do a lot of good, and he does solve problems or at least improve them. But there are still some problems that we need to know about. So there's a huge reliance on money from America. And if you know your history, you'll know in 1929 America's economy goes bust. And that means Germany goes bust too. And when that does happen, Stresemann's dead. So yeah, it's a problem relying on having your money come from one country. Farmers didn't benefit. Production was still only 74% of what it was before the war, so farmers didn't make any more money under Stresemann. Wages did increase under Stresemann, but so did the cost of living, so life didn't necessarily improve. So what that means is that maybe you're paid 10% more and you think, woo, 10% pay rise, but actually if the price of bread and rent also goes up by 10%, your life's not really changed that much. Small businesses weren't helped as much as larger companies. And half of people who were unemployed didn't qualify for benefits or help from the government. And 6 million people are still without jobs. Okay? So in a moment, we're going to be referring to these facts. So you're going to need to pause the video, get down that subheading, and then those 6 bullet points. Okay, so we're going to have a go at a exam practice question now. Well, it's a Germany question 5, so it's a longer essay question, but once you kind of get your feet under it, it's actually quite a nice question. You know me, I'm not a particularly horrible person, so I've given you a nice question. But what I'm going to ask you to do is go to our YouTube channel, find the playlist titled Germany Exam Help, and then go to question 5. And you just need to watch the first 5 minutes where it talks you through how to answer a Germany question 5. Okay, so for our question, we have a quote. Stresemann was no genius. What made the difference was the Dawes Plan and the economic prosperity that US money created. So what that source is saying is that it wasn't kind of Stresemann's input that improved Germany, it was the Dawes Plan. and it was also the fact that money was borrowed from America that improved Germany. And that's from an unnamed modern historian published on an online article titled "How Far Did Germany Recover After World War One?" So your structure and question is here. Your question is, to what extent do you agree with this interpretation? Do you agree Stresemann wasn't a genius? Do you agree that the Dawes Plan is what made the most difference to Germany? Do you agree that German prosperity was made with money from America? And then on the left, you've got your paragraphs 1 to 5 laid out for you. So each of these is a paragraph. So your first paragraph, you're going to outline what the source says in basic English, and you're going to set out your judgment. So how far do you agree? Do you completely agree with that statement, somewhat agree, or do you disagree completely? Then for your second paragraph, you're going to talk about context. So what was life like after World War One? And you're also going to need to talk in this section about what the Dawes Plan is and Stresemann's role. For your third paragraph, you're going to talk about authorship. So do we trust the author? They are unnamed. Is that a problem? They are a historian. So what do they spend most of their time doing, and how does that affect their reliability? And you've also got the fact that it's online. You might want to comment on that. And also the title of the article. So is it going to talk about what you need it to? And then your fourth paragraph is about other interpretations. So what might other historians say? Was Stresemann a genius? Was there a problem with American money? Is it actually not the Dawes Plan that makes the difference? Is it the Rentenmark and the end of hyperinflation? You can kind of go to town for number 4. And then your final paragraph is your judgment. So how far do you agree with this source or this interpretation? Again, do you completely agree, somewhat agree, or disagree? And you need to back it up with evidence. So this is probably going to take you a good 15 to 20 minutes to write. Okay, so you can now pause the video and have a go at writing it 15 to 20 minutes. And then, of course, there is a Show My Homework quiz on Show My Homework. So don't forget to go and do that 3 times. Bye!